Welcome back, everyone, to the Wedge 52 Gridiron Podcast. I'm your host, Wedge. Today's episode will be the Week 8 Around the League recap. Make sure you guys check out yesterday's episode if you guys are interested in the Baltimore Ravens Week 8 recap, as well as the full Ravens versus Seahawks Week 9 preview. But before we jump in today, please make sure you press that follow button right here on Spotify, as well as share this podcast with your fellow NFL fans. And check out my Instagram at Wedge52Gridiron to see more content about when new episodes are being published, as well as a couple other content posts that will go up every single week over there on Instagram. All that being said, let's jump into today's episode, Week 8 Around the League recap. So kind of on the agenda today, Week 8 thoughts and recap, quick look into the top 3 for major stat categories around the league, as well as the Week 8 him performance of the week. And then we'll kind of get into the Week 9 quick thoughts and matchups on every single matchup coming up this week. That'll just be off the top of my head. Don't really do notes for that. It's just my initial thoughts, reactions, things to look for with the upcoming week. And then I will give you all my Week 9 picks. Let's jump into it with the Thursday night matchup of Week 8. The Buffalo Bills took down the Buccaneers 24-18. Baker Mayfield was 25 for 42, 237 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions, as well as 3 carries for 19 yards. Running back Rachaad White was very good for them. 9 carries for just 39 yards, but he also had 7 catches for 70 yards. Chris Godwin, 5 for 54 and a touchdown, as well as Mike Evans, 3 for 39 and a touchdown. Over on that Buffalo Bills side, Josh Allen went 31 for 40, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, as well as 7 rushes for 41 yards and 1 touchdown. Wide receiver Shakir, 6 catches for 92 yards. Running back Shakir, 6 rushes for 92 yards. Wide receiver Gabe Davis, 9 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs, 9 catches for 70 yards. And tight end Dalton Kincaid, 5 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown for Buffalo to take down the Buccaneers 24-18. And then moving into the Sunday action, the Jacksonville Jaguars went into Pittsburgh and beat them 20-10. Kenny Pickett went 10 for 16, just 73 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He did leave the game in the second quarter, I believe, with a rib injury. He's expected to be, day-to-day / week-to-week, somewhere in that range. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops for the Steelers. Mitch Trubisky did come into the game. He went 15 for 27, 138 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars, 24 out of 32 completions, 292 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Running back Travis Etienne continuing to have quite the tear the past couple of weeks. Sunday, he had 24 carries for 79 yards, as well as 3 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown. The tight end Evan Ingram, 10 catches for 88 yards. And then a very good performance by defensive end Josh Allen for the Jaguars, who had 5 tackles and 2 sacks on the victory for the Jaguars. Moving into the Battle of MetLife Stadium, the Jets beat the Giants 13-10 in overtime. Quarterback Tyrod Taylor, 4 for 7, just 8 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He also left the game, also in the second quarter, I want to say, with a rib injury. Quarterback Danny DeVito came in. He went 2 for 7 for -1 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Absolutely horrendous performance by the play calling and New York Giants offense. The only sunshine part of that offense, this past Sunday was Saquon Barkley, who carried the ball 36 times and had 128 yards. For the defense, though, Kayvon Thibodeau had a very good day. 9 tackles and 3 sacks for the edge presence of Kayvon Thibodeaux, who has quietly been ramping up his production the past couple of weeks after a slow start to the season. And then on the Jets side of the ball, quarterback Zach Wilson, 17 for 36, 240 yards, a touchdown, and no interceptions, as well as 4 rushes for 25 yards. Wide receiver Garrett Wilson, 7 catches for 100 yards even. And then Breece Hall, 12 carries for just 17 yards, but did have 6 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown in the overtime victory for the New York Jersey Jets. And then heading over to the Texans and Panthers matchup. Panthers get their first win of the season, 15-13 over CJ Stroud and the Texans offense. Stroud struggled a little bit, 16 for 24, just 140 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, as well as 2 carries for 13 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And that Texans defense did have 6 sacks on that Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick. But where they kind of hurt themselves was 10 penalty flags for 70 yards. And then for the Carolina Panthers, in his first career victory, Bryce Young, 22 for 31, 235 yards, and a touchdown. No interceptions, finding his favorite target so far this season, Adam Thielen, 8 times for 72 yards over there. And then moving over to a divisional matchup between the Patriots and the Dolphins. The Dolphins handled them pretty smoothly, 31-17. Quarterback Mac Jones went 19 for 29, 161 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception on the day. A wide receiver who's been having a solid year, Kendrick Bourne, had 3 catches for 36 yards and a touchdown before he unfortunately tore his ACL. That's very unfortunate news for the Patriots and Kendrick Bourne, as he's been having himself a solid little season so far. Had 37 catches, 406 yards, and 4 touchdowns on the year. On the Dolphins side, that offense continues to, be, almost unstoppable with the amount of weapons they have. Keep in mind that rookie running back Devin Achane is still on IR. That did not slow them down this week. Tua Tagovailoa, 30 for 45, 324 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Raheem Mostert, 13 carries for 46 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Jalen Waddle, 7 catches for 121 yards and a touchdown. And his running mate, probably the best wide receiver in the league this year. Either him or A.J. Brown, without a doubt, one of those two guys. Tyreek Hill, 8 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown. And then for that Dolphins defense, Jalen Ramsey made his first appearance as a Miami Dolphin after facing the injury, dealing with that injury that he suffered in training camp. I believe it was a meniscus. So his first game back, first appearance as a Dolphin, and he did get an interception. Moving to the Falcons and Titans matchup. The Titans won that one 28-23. Quarterback Desmond Ridder went 8 for 12, 71 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions, as well as 3 carries for 26 yards. He left the game with a potential concussion. I think from what I've seen is that he cleared the concussion protocol, was able to come back in, and head coach Arthur Smith not only said, kind of said it was precautionary, what percent of that is truly just precautionary versus what percent of that, is the Falcons looking to kind of move or have an excuse to test out quarterback Taylor Heinicke, who went 12 for 21, 175 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and 2 rushes for 14 yards. So solid performance by Heinicke. The Atlanta Falcons could potentially have a decision to make heading into their next game versus, who is going to be starting. Taylor Heinicke versus Desmond Ridder. So they may have a decision to make here in the upcoming week. It'll be interesting to see how that one develops over there. And then Bijan Robinson, good day. 11 carries for 62 yards and a touchdown. And shout out Falcons wide receiver Scotty Miller, 2 catches for 14 yards and a touchdown. Barrington High School alum right there. So shout out to Mr. Miller. And then for the Titans offense, Ryan Tannehill was ruled out with a concussion. Will Levis was deemed the starter, 33rd, I believe, overall pick in this recent draft in April. And Levis had himself a day for his career start as a Titan in the NFL. 19 for 29, 238 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. A very good, efficient day. Most of that was helped of his wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, who had 4 catches for 128 yards and 3 touchdowns. Derrick Henry also, pitched in very well for them. 22 carries for 101 yards on the day, as well as 4 catches for 21 yards receiving. And that Tennessee defense did stand very well against that Falcons offense, having 6 sacks on the day for Tennessee, getting them the victory. The Vikings and the Packers. Vikings won that one 24-10. Quarterback Jordan Love, 24 for 41, 229 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, as well as 4 rushes for 34 yards. The only notable offensive statistic for them outside of the quarterback, rookie wide receiver Jaden Reed, 4 catches for 83 yards. For that Viking side, Kirk Cousins, 23 for 31, 274 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Another very solid performance for Kirk Cousins, who unfortunately tore his Achilles in that game and will be out for the remainder of the season. Devastating news for Kirk Cousins, as he was, top of the league, battling top of the league for passing yards, and has been leading in passing touchdowns the past couple of weeks. Very, very unfortunate news for Kirk Cousins. He will also be a free agent at the end of this season. So definitely, bad injury for Kirk Cousins. Wishing him the best in his recovery. And then, wide receiver Osborne, 8 catches for 99 yards. Tight end TJ Hawkinson, 6 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown. And rookie wide receiver Jordan Addison, another 7 catches for 82 yards and a touchdown on the day. I would say Jordan Addison is potentially making his case right now. Not potentially. He's making the case. But I would say he is potentially edging out wide receiver Puka Nacua for that number 1 rookie wide receiver position. After the past few weeks, Puka's numbers have not been as crazy as, he started out. I believe Puka this past week, week 8, had 2 or 3 catches for, I want to say, less than 20 yards. Addison has been on a tear, been finding the end zone, and getting, good receptions, in part because of wide receiver Justin Jefferson being on IR. But he was, producing some before that as well. So Jordan Addison, been balling as the young wide receiver. And the Rams lost to the Cowboys 20-43. Matthew Stafford, 13 completions out of 22 attempts, 162 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. He did injure his thumb. I believe he left the game. He is considered day-to-day. Knowing Matthew Stafford, I would guess he will, tough it out and be the starter next week for them. But we will see how that develops, and Matthew Stafford's hand, how it's dealing with as the week progresses. Running back Royce Freeman, 9 carries for 44 yards and a touchdown. Not really any notable wide receiver numbers, like I said. Puka didn't have many yards. Cooper Kupp didn't have many yards. So, nothing really to note there. For the Cowboys, though, Dak Prescott, 25 for 31, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception, as well as 4 rushes for 19 yards. He was finding his favorite target, CeeDee Lamb, who had 12 catches for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. One very nice touchdown reception over on the right sideline in the end zone. And then, wide receiver Brandon Cooks, 3 catches for 49 yards and a touchdown. tight end Ferguson, 4 catches for 47 yards and a touchdown. That defense really showed up to play defense / special teams unit for the Dallas Cowboys showed up well. DaRon Bland had his third pick six of the season. And then as well as that safety caused by the Broncos defense off of a blocked punt that went out of the back of the end zone. And then moving to a nice divisional matchup between the Eagles and the Commanders. The Eagles held on to win yet again against the Commanders, 38-31. Both of their matchups this season have been very closely contested ball games, and where the Eagles have came out on top in both occasions. Quarterback Sam Howell for the Commanders, 39 out of 52, 397 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So realistically, a very solid day for quarterback Sam Howell against a good Eagles defense. Running back Brian Robinson had 10 carries for 59 yards. And then wide receivers Dotson, Crowder, Terry, and Logan Thomas. If he's still listed as a wide receiver, he may be a tight end on the depth chart. And he's very active. All 4 of those guys had 1 receiving touchdown apiece. And very impressive performance by the Commanders' offensive line, who has been struggling mightily. I want to say now Howell's been sacked 41 times so far this season, I think. But they for sure only allowed 1 sack against a very good Eagles defensive front. So spectacular performance by the Commanders' offensive line. They definitely did everything in their power to protect Sam Howell and put the Commanders in position to win that ball game. For the Eagles, quarterback Jalen Hurts, 29 for 38, 319 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Running back DeAndre Swift, 16 carries for 57 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver A.J. Brown had himself a day, 8 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, with also potentially the catch of the year candidate with a nice one-handed touchdown. And then Devontae Smith, 7 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown. Overall, good day by that Eagles offensive unit. Moving to the Saints and the Colts matchup. The Saints won that one 38-27. Gardner Minshew, 23 for 41, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. As for the running back splits, Jonathan Taylor, 12 rushes for 95 yards, and Zach Moss, 11 rushes for 66 yards and a touchdown. So past couple of weeks here, as Jonathan Taylor's production increases, we are seeing a more of an even split between Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss in that backfield for the Indianapolis Colts. Quarterback Derek Carr, 19 out of 27, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions on the day. Swiss Army knife, let's call him. Taysom Hill, 9 carries for 63 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Then Alvin Kamara, another great day by him. He's really getting into a groove now. 17 rushes for 59 yards and a touchdown, as well as 4 catches for 51 yards and a touchdown. And then Saints wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, 3 catches for 153 yards and a touchdown in that victory over the Indianapolis Colts. And the Browns lost to the Seahawks 20-24. Quarterback PJ Walker, 15 out of 31, 248 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Running back Kareem Hunt, 14 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown, as well as 1 catch for 12 yards. Amari Cooper, 6 catches for 89 yards on the day. And then David Njoku had himself a pretty solid day, 4 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown for the Cleveland Browns tight end. Over on the Seattle Seahawks side, Geno Smith, 23 out of 37, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Kenneth Walker, 8 carries for 66 yards. And Tyler Lockett, 8 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown. DK Metcalf, 5 for 67. And JSN, 3 for 36 and a touchdown for Seattle. You want a full deep dive into the Seattle Seahawks, kind of what they're about this season. Check out yesterday's episode where the second half of that I previewed the Ravens and Seahawks Week 9 matchup taking place in Baltimore. Now moving to the Ravens and Cardinals game. The Ravens took down the Cardinals 31-24 in Arizona. Josh Dobbs, in what we later found out is his last game as an Arizona Cardinal, as he got traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Josh Dobbs, 25 for 37, 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Running back Emari Demercado, 20 carries for 78 yards for the Cardinals, as well as tight end Trey McBride, 10 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. Not enough to take the victory from that Baltimore Ravens. From Lamar Jackson, who went 18 for 27, just 157 yards, 1 touchdown, and 0 interceptions. So, decent day in terms of, 18 out of 27, but only 157 yards. That's in part to the Cardinals' defense they were playing. But Gus Edwards picked up the slack, 19 carries for 80 yards and 3 touchdowns for Gus the Bus Edwards, as well as 2 catches for 14 yards. And then Mark Andrews, 4 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown on the day in his hometown of Scottsdale, Arizona. The Chiefs were stunningly upset by the Broncos 24-9 out in Denver. Patrick Mahomes apparently was dealing with an illness. 24 for 38 on the day, 241 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions for him. Travis Kelce, 6 catches for 58 yards. The Chiefs' defense, though, was putting up a very good day. They had 6 total sacks, led by edge defensive end George Karlaftis, who had 7 tackles and 2.5 sacks. For that Broncos offense, Russell Wilson just 12 for 19, only 114 yards, which not great by any means, but 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. So a very efficient day by Russell Wilson and that offense. Running back Javonte Williams, 27 carries for 85 yards. Jerry Jeudy had 2 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown, as well as Courtland Sutton had 2 catches for 29 yards and a touchdown for that Broncos offense in the upset over the Kansas City Chiefs. First time the Denver Broncos have beaten the Chiefs in the Mahomes era. First time the Broncos have beaten the Chiefs since 2015. The Bengals took down the 49ers, handing them their 3rd straight loss, 31-17 in San Francisco. Brock Purdy, 22 for 31, 365 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions, as well as 6 rushes for 57 yards. Christian McCaffrey continuing, definitely the best running back in the league so far this year. 12 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown on the ground, as well as 6 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown through the air. Tight end George Kittle, 9 catches for 149 yards, and wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, 5 catches for 109 yards. Overall, very solid production from the offense, just not enough to get it done for the win. The 2 interceptions kind of hurt that 49ers offense there. Joe Burrow, 28 out of 32, 283 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and no interceptions on the day, as well as 6 rushes for 43 yards. Joe Mixon also ran the ball 16 times for 87 yards and a touchdown. Solid performance by him. And then for the wide receiver trio of the Cincinnati Bengals, T. Higgins, 5 for 69. Tyler Boyd, 3 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. And Jamar Chase, a very clean box score looking numbers. 10 catches for 100 yards and 1 touchdown on the day for Jamar Chase, who has been, picking it up as well after a very slow start for him. That Bengals offense, though, is still struggling mightily, ranked in the bottom 5 for most offensive stat categories, team-wise. And then Sunday Night Football, the Chargers took down the Bears 30-13. Backup quarterback Tyson Bagent started again for the Justin Fields thumb injury. Bagent went 25 for 37, 232 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 picks on the day. His number 1 target was tight end Cole Kmet, 10 catches for 79 yards. Justin Herbert on the other side of the ball, 31 for 40, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Running back Austin Eckler had 15 carries for just 29 yards, so not even 2 yards per carry, but very effective on the receiving end. 7 catches for 94 yards and a touchdown. And then wide receiver Keenan Allen also had 8 catches for 69 yards on the day for the LA Chargers, getting themselves a much-needed victory, especially to kind of hopefully, in their case, hopefully trying to keep pace in that competitive AFC. And then the last game of the week, Monday Night Football, the Detroit Lions took down the Vegas Raiders 26-14. The Lions look to return, back to how they were performing prior to that Baltimore Ravens beatdown. But the Detroit Lions, looked good on Monday Night Football. Jimmy Garoppolo was held to just 10 out of 21, only 126 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. The only source of production on that offense was Josh Jacobs, who went 15 carries for 61 yards and a touchdown, as well as 2 receptions for 27 yards. Wide receiver Davante Adams had just 1 catch for 12 yards. He also had a drop. He was also wide open on what would have been a 98-yard touchdown, where Jimmy Garoppolo missed the target by a mile, as well as Davante Adams was wide open on a sideline, double move, 10, 15-yard post and go kind of route, double move. Jimmy Garoppolo also overthrew by about 15 yards. Adams was visibly frustrated. Adams is having a very poor year statistically, and he is definitely a top 5 wide receiver in the league. So it's sad to see for Davante Adams. Jared Goff for the Detroit Lions, 26 for 37 completions, 272 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Rookie running back Jahmyr Gibbs had himself a day, finding holes, finding cutback lanes, carrying defenders, missed tackles, you name it. Jahmyr Gibbs had himself a day. 26 carries for 152 yards and a touchdown, as well as 5 receptions for 37 yards on the Monday Night Football matchup. Amon-Ra St. Brown continued to produce 6 catches for 108 yards, and rookie tight end Sam Laporta, 8 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown. A couple of defensive highlights for the Detroit Lions. Anzalone had 7 tackles and 2 sacks out of that linebacker position. And then Aleem McNeil from the interior defensive lineman, getting it done, 4 tackles and 2 sacks for him as well. So that is quick thoughts and a recap on every single Week 8 matchup around the league. Next up, we're just going to give you guys a quick rundown on the top 3 major stat categories around the NFL heading into Week 9. So top 3 for passing yards, Tua with 2,416, Kirk Cousins 2,331, Pat Mahomes 2,258. Passing touchdowns, Kirk Cousins 18, Tua Tagovailoa 18, Josh Allen 17. Rushing yards, Christian McCaffrey 652, Zach Moss 589, and Travis Etienne 583. Rushing touchdowns, Raheem Mostert 10, Christian McCaffrey 9, Travis Etienne 7. In terms of receiving yards, Tyreek Hill 1,014, A.J. Brown not far behind with 939, and Puka Nacua still holding in the 3rd spot at 795. Receiving touchdowns, Tyreek Hill 8, Jordan Addison 7, and then Courtland Sutton, Mark Andrews, and Stephon Diggs all have 6. For the defensive side of the ball, interceptions is still led by Baltimore Ravens' Geno Stone, who grabbed another one this week. He now has 5 on the season. Deron Bland has 4 interceptions, with 3 of them being pick sixes, and then 7 players have 3 interceptions. Sacks, Danielle Hunter has 10, Josh Allen of the Jaguars has 9, and then TJ Watt, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Myles Garrett all have 8.5. And then rounding out the top 3 of the major stats, tackles, Zaire Franklin has 102, Foyesade Olukun 92, and TJ Edwards 83 tackles on the season. So that wraps up the top three stat categories for major stats. That leads me into the Week 8 him performance of the week. Some of the people that were, in contention this week for the him performance of the week award include quarterback Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins, CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Gus Edwards. So this week's winner of the him performance of the week goes to DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins had 4 receptions for 128 yards and 3 touchdowns in their Sunday victory over the Atlanta Falcons. DeAndre Hopkins was, out there lined up with a rookie quarterback making his first career start. DeAndre Hopkins said, "I got you," and, carried the him performance of the week 8, helping out his young quarterback and the Tennessee Titans get the victory. Congratulations to DeAndre Hopkins on him performance of the week. Now we're going to move into the Week 9 matchups. I'll give my quick thoughts, a couple of things to look for maybe. A couple of key injuries, as well as, free agent or trade deadline, acquisitions for some teams. All of this just off the top of my head here. This week, a couple teams have bye weeks. That'll be the Denver Broncos, Detroit Lions, Jacksonville Jaguars, and San Francisco 49ers will all be on a bye. We kick off this week with Thursday Night Football, the Titans at the Steelers. Definitely, I think Will Levis should get another start here. Tannehill most likely will be good to go from that concussion, but with the kind of numbers that Will Levis put up and the shaky season that Ryan Tannehill is having, I think Will Levis should get the start. We will see if that is the case. And then, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kenny Pickett dealing with that injury. We'll see if he's good to go. Should be a good matchup between two teams that, have a decent amount of potential, but, mediocre records to show for. The Steelers, I think they're 4-2, 4-3 maybe now. A couple of those games, Ravens, they kind of got gifted because of, the Ravens' lack of ability to catch the ball or, a couple of flags on. It's all good. Dolphins at Chiefs play Sunday morning in Germany. This game should be a game between two of the top contenders in the AFC. The Miami Dolphins offense has been absolutely incredible all season long. Kansas City Chiefs just lost the game to the Denver Broncos that, they haven't lost to the Broncos in years and years. Patrick Mahomes, had a down game for his standards, 2 interceptions. He should be healthy, I would think, from the sickness. The Miami Dolphins, though, however, haven't beaten a team with a winning record this season. So this will be a big test for them to kind of show if they are capable of doing that. We will see. And then the Seahawks, they head to the Baltimore Ravens this weekend. Check out yesterday's episode for a full in-depth preview of that Seahawks and Ravens matchup between Lamar Jackson and Geno Smith. The Rams take on the Packers in Green Bay. Matthew Stafford, like I said, I would think he's going to be playing that one. I would also expect, the Rams to have, the Rams wide receivers to have a better performance than they did last week. Mainly Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua against the Packers secondary. Still got Jerry Alexander, but the Packers did trade away cornerback Rasul Douglas, who has been very solid for them so far this season. Jordan Love has been struggling the past few weeks after a hot start. That Rams defense is, overperforming, what you would have expected them to before the season started. So we'll see if they continue to give Love struggles and keep that Rams offense in it enough for them to take over and try and win a ball game. Commanders take on the Patriots in New England. The Commanders came off potentially their best offensive game of the season, especially by that offensive line. Complete 180 from what, we've become, expecting so far this season. Patriots have been struggling all season, but still, found themselves a couple of wins here and there already. should be an interesting one up in New England. The Buccaneers take on the Texans. The Texans just lost to the Carolina Panthers. That was the last team that needed a victory in the 2023 NFL campaign. CJ Stroud will be looking to bounce back against that Buccaneers defense, as well as the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, they're looking to get another win. I believe it's been a few weeks, or, they've been cold in their past, 3-4 games. Buccaneers are looking to, pick up a victory and find themselves in potential to still try and win that division. The Bucs and the Saints, the Saints and the Falcons, and the Bucs, all three of them, still a very close race for that division. Granted, I don't think any of them will win a playoff game, but, still looking for that division title. The Cardinals head to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Cardinals have an interesting situation after trading away Josh Dobbs before the trade deadline. So it'll either be rookie quarterback Clayton Tune to get the start, or Kyler Murray, who has been practicing the past couple of weeks, but is not yet activated. That'll be a very interesting take to watch, see how that develops throughout the week. If Clayton Tune gets to start, to kind of see if he's got any potential, or if Kyler Murray gets to start, to see if he can return to form, from a couple of seasons ago. The one where Kyler Murray, was in that top 8, discussion before the past couple of years. Obviously, he got hurt halfway through last season. It'll be interesting to see if he gets to go ahead. If he doesn't, I would fully expect him to be back the following week. And then the Cleveland Browns, also, quarterback situation to watch to see if quarterback Deshaun Watson will be healthy enough to get the start this week in Cleveland. The Browns could, use a victory after the disappointing loss to the Seattle Seahawks, who are a solid football team. But, the Browns had a couple of opportunities to put points on the board last week, and they were unable to do that with quarterback P.J. Walker at the helm. The Bears and Saints play each other. We'll see if Justin Fields is good to go. For that Chicago Bears, they did acquire Montez Sweat at the trade deadline. I'm not sure, how much of an impact that's going to make, as I do not think that the Bears, defensive line was the weak spot of that team. Either way, regardless, they acquired Montez Sweat. He's been having a solid season down in Washington. And then for the, New Orleans Saints, a team that is, potentially underperforming. They have been looking better with, Alvin Kamara back. Derek Carr starting to get a little bit healthier after the AC joint injury, 3-4 weeks ago, whenever that occurred. So it'll be an interesting one in New Orleans. Both teams, would like a victory to stay alive. Talking about staying alive, not even halfway through the season. But a couple of these divisions, more specifically, wild card spots, especially in that NFC, really in both conferences, for different reasons. The NFC for, mediocre records, AFC for good records. But, playoff wild card spots, every game is starting to count in terms of getting into the playoffs. And then the Vikings take on the Falcons. The Vikings traded for Josh Dobbs after the unfortunate injury to Kirk Cousins, who is done for the year. And then the Atlanta Falcons, like I talked about briefly earlier, are going to be facing a quarterback dilemma of Taylor Heinicke versus Desmond Ridder. In my opinion, I say start Tyler Heinicke. I thought Desmond Ridder was going to be on a shorter leash if you listen to my Falcons 10-minute report from July. I'm surprised that his leash has been this long. He hasn't been performing great. He's been a little bit up and down in terms of production. A handful of interceptions, handful of fumbles, couple at the goal line. I'm surprised it has taken this long if this is the week where Taylor Heinicke gets his first start of the season. And then the Colts take on the Panthers. Colts offense is, mediocre. Panthers as a whole are not good. I would expect this to be, not much of an entertaining game to watch, unless you're a Colts or Panthers fan. Moving on quickly to the Giants and the Raiders game. This will be another battle between two teams that, on paper, looking at their roster, should definitely both be performing better than, kind of expected. Tyrod Taylor did leave the last game with an injury. They refused to throw the ball with DeVito. But Daniel Jones has been cleared to return from that neck injury. We'll see if that means he will be good to go to get the start. It would definitely be much needed for the New York Giants, as they can't really have DeVito starting, especially if they're scared to throw the ball with him. Saquon Barkley, it is unsustainable for him to have 36 carries per game, especially, he's already dealt with a few injuries in his career. And then for the Raiders, definitely looking to bounce back after struggling the past few weeks. They need to get Davante Adams involved if they want to be a threat against any team that they are playing. To have, a top 5 wide receiver and top 5 running back, heading into this season, in my rankings at least, to have a top 5 receiver and running back and be, whatever their record is, probably 3-4. At this point, I don't even know. It's bad. The Raiders need to get Adams involved. They need Garoppolo to get him the easy targets, to get him the wide open targets, if they want any shot going forward the rest of the season. The Cowboys and the Eagles play each other in Philly. That's going to be a very, very interesting matchup between two divisional rivals, two teams with very good records. The Eagles obviously being 7-1. It should be a good, close battle between two teams that, top of the league. This is going to be a big one, probably later down the road in terms of division and, wild card indications there. Jalen Hurts and that Philly offense looked very good last week. And then the Cowboys defense, looked very, very good, returning to form kind of after a couple of just slightly down weeks. It's going to be a good one to see over in Philly. And then Sunday Night Football, almost done here. Sunday Night Football, the Bills take on the Bengals in Cincinnati. The Bills looking good for the most part this season. A couple of hiccups. That Cincinnati Bengals offense, while their production is rising the past few weeks, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, everyone, included in that offense, their production has been rising. They've been scoring more points, definitely more yards, definitely, less, interceptions and silly mistakes by Joe Burrow, but still statistically ranked, bottom 5 to bottom 8 in most, categories: yards per game, points, rush yards, pass yards, third down percentage, still struggling statistically. The Bills defense, after suffering a few key injuries, linebacker Matt Milano, I believe, as well as cornerback Tre'Davious White, been struggling, but, holding in there solid so far. And then I want to say they acquired Rasul Douglas from the Packers. I believe that's where he went. I know he got traded, like 98% sure. It was to the Bills. So getting a little bit of reinforcement there on that Buffalo secondary. And then the last matchup of the week, Monday Night Football. Chargers are back in primetime. They're going to be playing the Jets at MetLife Stadium. Chargers coming off a much-needed victory over the Chicago Bears. They are looking to right the ship and, get back to 500, get close back to 500. Playing the Jets, who are surprisingly 4-3 after the Aaron Rodgers injury on, first possession of the year for them. That Jets defense is very good, probably, ranked 10-ish in terms of defensive production, efficiency, all that. And the Jets, surprisingly, have played above, expectations against the better teams. Obviously, they got that Week 1 victory against the Bills after, Rodgers went down, as well as defeating the Philadelphia Eagles. In that matchup against them, Hurts, had 3 interceptions, I think, potentially a fumble as well. So that defense keeps them in games, especially in their big games. The Jets have kept things close. They kept it very close, one possession away against the Chiefs as well. Should be a good matchup there on Monday Night Football. Both teams, I'm sure, are really wanting a win for that AFC playoff race. So that's a quick rundown of every single Week 9 matchup. Just my quick thoughts, initial reactions, things that come to my mind when seeing the Week 9 matchup, which leaves me with just my Week 9 picks. Week 8 went 9-7. Not horrible. Would like to get back in the 10 wins column here, for next week. But on the season, we're still 79-43, which is good enough for a 648 success percentage. So not horrible. Still good picks on the Wedge 52 Gridiron as always. Can't hit them all, but here is my attempt at Week 9. So starting off with Thursday Night Football, I'm taking the Titans over the Steelers. I'm taking the Dolphins over the Chiefs. Ravens over the Seahawks. Rams over the Packers. Patriots over the Commanders. Bucks over the Texans. Browns over the Cardinals. Saints over the Bears. Falcons over the Vikings. Colts over the Panthers. Raiders over the Giants. Eagles over the Cowboys. Bills over the Bengals. Chargers over the Jets. That's all I have for this episode of the Wedge 52 Gridiron podcast. If you guys made it this far, thank you so much for listening. As always, press that follow button if you haven't already, as well as share this with your fellow NFL fans if you liked it this much to listen all the way through. I think it's worth a share. Thank you all for listening once again, and go Ravens.